Distribution provided by Cloud Sigma, the cloud that adapts to you. Visit cloudsigma.com/thisweekin for a free $200 credit.
Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by ShareFile from Citrix. Secure file transfer built for business. Visit sharefile.com, click the microphone, and enter TWiST for a free 30-day trial. And by Squarespace, an all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website and now an online store. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com/twist and use offer code TWIST3.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. Today on the program, Chris Dixon, the legendary entrepreneur, he's laughing, the legendary entrepreneur, angel investor, and now venture capitalist, having joined Andreessen Horowitz. This is the first interview he's done since joining. It's going to be an amazing program. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, what a wonderful episode of This Week in Startups, and what a wonderful product ShareFile is by Citrix. Our friends at Citrix have made a wonderful industrial strength file sharing tool for business. It's secure and it's awesome, and it's industrial strength, like I said. Most businesses, hey, they use attachments for when they email, but we don't want you to do that. You want to know when stuff gets received, and you want it in the right hands, and you want to be confident that it's secure, and that's why you use ShareFile. It's important to every business. What can you do with them? With ShareFile, you can send your files of almost any size with the highest degree of security, track the progress on your files so you can see if people are changing them, who's opening them, access the files from anywhere, any mobile device, any computer. And how do we use it? We request files here at the program, so we'll request stuff from our sponsors, request stuff from guests, and it sends them an email alert. And then they upload to a secure file, and we get it. They don't even have to have an account. We can just have them put it like in this quick little folder for us. And you can share very large video clips and all that kind of stuff. Great email alerts when somebody uploads or downloads. I love that stuff. Highly recommend you sign up for the 30-day free trial. No credit card is required. Just go to sharefile.com, click the radio microphone button, and use the promo code TWIST. So go to ShareFile, click the radio microphone button, and use the promo code TWIST, TWiST, and you get a 30-day free trial. And hey, we got a special treat for you, the ShareFile TWIST Club. You can join right now and get access to the top 10 questions that have ever been asked and answered on the program. We had our researchers spend weeks and weeks and weeks looking into the archives, over 300 episodes, and they found the 10 most important questions for you as an entrepreneur. And how do you get this video file, this huge, HD, beautiful, gorgeous video file with the most important questions that you need to ask yourself, and you need to hear the answers from people like Chamath and Ev Williams and the best people who've ever been on the program? How do you get it? You sign up for ShareFile, use the promo code TWIST. Step 1, you sign up for ShareFile. You use the promo code TWiST. Then you request a file link by emailing sharefile@launch.co. That's it. You just say, request a file, sharefile@launch.co, and we will send you the beautiful, gorgeous file, huge file into your ShareFile. You're the only people who are going to get these 10 answers and 10 questions that are critical for your business. What a great promotion. What a great file, video, great interviews. You can only get it by joining the ShareFile TWIST Club. So step 1, sign up for ShareFile. Use the promo code TWIST. Step 2, request a file link and email that to sharefile@launch.co, and then one of our people will just go, boop, here you go. Here are the top 10 answers to the top 10 questions that you need for running your business. These are critically important questions that you need answered, and you're only going to get them by using ShareFile by Citrix. Thank you so much for sponsoring the program, ShareFile. Let's get back to this very important episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to the program. I am Jason Calacanis. This is This Week in Startups, and we are here at WeWork in San Francisco. I'm up here for couple of weeks before the big launch festival, March 4th, 5th, and 6th. And, you may have read that Chris Dixon left New York to come out west and join Andreessen Horowitz, the incredibly successful, yet very young venture capital firm that's raised billions of dollars, run by Ben Horowitz and Marc Andreessen. So, Chris, welcome back to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Why did you decide to join? I mean, that's the question, right? So you were an angel investor, entrepreneur, doing pretty well. You sold the Hunch to eBay. That seemed to have turned out well for you. You could just continue being a solo, angel investor, or you had Founder Collective going. This is a pretty big jump, joining a venture firm.
Yep.
I would imagine. Why did you make that decision?
So I guess that for me there were sort of two things to think about. One was, starting another company or doing more investing. And I think you do both as well. And I'm sure you've thought about the trade-offs. I think I really enjoy kind of building stuff and doing an actual startup. I think I think I've done it enough times. I've done 2 venture-backed startups and some stuff before that. And it's just as you may know, it can be a roller coaster. Yeah. And I just wasn't sure if I could take it again, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that is, when you're an entrepreneur and you work with VCs at a venture-backed startup, you start looking across the table going, my God, those guys have a pretty good life.
I mean, you get the nice thing about investing is you get to kind of ride along with some of the excitement without, having to deal with it directly and have everything, Yeah. The reality is if you're a VC and you don't, you get sick one day, like the company doesn't fall apart, right? Like, whereas as an entrepreneur it does. So for me, that was one thing I thought a lot about. I think it would have been, if you knew your next thing would be, super successful and runaway hit, that's different than, the reality, which is you don't know. And
right.
So I thought a lot about that just as like from a personal career point of view. And I thought maybe, I would go and I had sort of ideas. I think every sort of serial entrepreneur has like little fantasies about doing like a BetaWorks type thing. Like I'll do 3 things and I'll sort of, be able to kind of be building stuff, but have a little more, scale. I don't think that rarely works in practice. I think it's,
what would you call that? Like, it's like an incubator.
Yeah.
Like Bill Gross did it.
Like in some ways, like Ev Williams did it. I mean, I think he did it in a very smart way. And Kevin Ryan.
With Gilt Group.
With Gilt Group and Tengen.
And now Science.
Science. It's hard to pull off. Like that was something I thought a lot about. And then,
but that means you're having to originate the ideas largely. You're having to recruit a bunch of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
It's a lot different than being a VC, right?
Yeah. So I'm saying, like, I just sort of in the things that might have been things I could have done. I thought about starting something, maybe something in between, kind of like a BetaWorksy type thing. And I honestly hadn't particularly thought about joining an established institution or a VC. And then I started talking to the people at Andreessen Horowitz, and I just think what they've done is really interesting. Their kind of model for the way it's sort of we describe it is if building the VC firm that we wish we had as entrepreneurs.
Right. It's a very entrepreneur-driven venture firm, and it seems like they have taken this approach. I mean, they've made a lot of other VCs nervous. Why do you think that is? Why are a lot of VCs sort of like, Andreessen Horowitz is making them nervous?
Well, I think, there's historically been sort of this top tier, set of VCs who, with the really kind of hot deals, they compete
Sequoia,
over
Kleiner, whatever, the Excel.
Exactly.
And Post, Facebook.
And so I think just anytime you have sort of new entrants into that group, there's competitive aspects. I think though that, the way I sort of view it is there's that aspect. That's one lens to look at it through. The other one is
just Marc is a big presence, Ben is a big presence. So hey, now you've got another top tier firm, which means if there's 10 great deals a year, Andreessen's going to get a couple of them.
That's right. And then, but I think the more radical way to look at it, which is how I kind of look at it, is to think it's not just that, but it's also they're proposing a brand new model.
Yeah, that's the thing that's interesting.
Yes.
What is that model?
So I think of it as like, how we think about the language we use when we talk about VCs. We say things like, he's great at picking companies, right? Do we say that about lawyers or accountants? Like, wow, that lawyer, he's really good at picking clients. No, you don't say that. You say, he's really good at helping his clients, right? Yeah. And so it's a different model. It's like, do you think of it as the VCs picking the entrepreneurs, or do you think it's the entrepreneurs picking the VCs?
Right.
And so what's happened over, since the beginnings of venture capital 40 years ago or whatever, is that back then capital was scarce, VCs were scarce. This became, they became abundant and to some extent commoditized. And entrepreneurs got much savvier about sort of sharing information.
The old term sheets were shared now.
Yeah, you remember like when we started off, it was like to even understand what the terms in a term sheet was like this like dark magic. It was like you had to go consult, like find one of the 10 people in the world who understood it. It was all mysterious.
Right.
Now it's all wide open. You know, stuff's on like Hacker News and people are chatting.
Yeah, I mean, these
and like
kids coming up know how to negotiate a term sheet much better than you or I.
They are very sophisticated. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, they're doing like they're like, oh, well, I did a waterfall of how this would work out at 40 million, 80 million, and 150 million dollars. Like, you and I never did a waterfall model of how the exit would work.
No,
did you?
And the pitch decks are all like incredibly well done, and like the whole. I mean, you know, just because there's just a lot more information flow, and so I think like given those changes in the world, like the sort of the startup idea behind Andreessen Horowitz is. The world has changed in that way. Let's make a venture capital firm that looks more like like how we describe service firms in other parts of the economy, like a law firm. It wouldn't be like, oh, they're so good at picking. I think about like the Midas list. Like it's all wrong. You wouldn't have a Midas list of lawyers.
Yeah.
You would have another list, which is look how well they service them, and that's how we think about it. And that's actually like the attitude we have inside of the firm is like the high fives are typically around like, wow, we got those guys as great customer versus, you know, wow, we won this deal.
Right.
Like it's a different mindset for thinking about how the firm works. And it's a different, by the way, economic model. So the vast majority of management fees for most VCs goes to the general partner salaries. Here it doesn't. It goes to the 60 operating partners we have who do all these things to help.
60 operating. This is the thing.
So there's 7 investors. You walk in there. There's 68 people, whatever the number, something like that, and only 7 of them do investing.
And you're the 7th partner, is that right? So this is the thing that I've had specifically multiple VCs tell me, like, you know, like there's 60 people there servicing entrepreneurs doing what?
So there's 5 groups. There's a marketing group, which, you know, helps them with PR and all those kinds of things like that. There's a technical recruiting group, which you know, helps with programmers and designers. I mean, so like I get this all the time as an angel, like, hey, do you know any graphic designers? And you're like, maybe I do, but you know what? Everyone's looking for it. Right. We have a guy whose job it is to find graphic designers for our companies. Like it's all he does, and he has like Salesforce, and he's finding people, and he's like vetting leads and doing, you know, all these sorts of things. So we have a technical recruiting, we have executive recruiting, and then we have this group called the market development group, which literally there's a whole separate floor in our firm where every day we bring in corporate, you know, Citibank, whatever, and then we have 10 portfolio companies come in and pitch the CTO.
Wow!
Like every single day. Like most firms that have like their CTO conference once a year. We do it every single day. And then there's a research group. Actually, we just started a new group called the corporate development group. So helping you with M&A. Strategic investments, venture debt, all sorts of other, you know. That's a group. That's like 5 people who are like professional bankers who now, you know, work for these companies. People
are taking this this is sort of very inside baseball, but from what I've heard, people are taking this kind of personally because the management fees, you know, people are getting 2 or 3% every year on $1 billion fund or something. It's a lot of money. Yep. And Marc Andreessen has basically said, we don't care about that short-term money. Put that into the business and let's play the long game. Yep. Let's get our startups, put all that money into our startups essentially, which means when you went to work there, I'm guessing that the salary, the cash compensation up front every year, every month, is much lower than what you got offered at other places. And you had a couple of people going after you.
I mean,
one can assume you did.
It's a like order of magnitude lower, yeah.
An order of magnitude lower.
Well, I don't know quite yet, but
but okay, it's much lower. Yeah. So what was your thinking on that? I mean, you could work at a firm that was as prestigious, but with, you know, some multiple on the salary. What was your thinking on that? Just felt better?
Well, I think one is I'm not necessarily optimizing for money right now in my life, but you know, I'm doing it for like interesting stuff. But I think that if you just think about money, that the theory is if you win the best deals and you have the best returns, you'll more than make up for it in the carry. I mean, that's
go long. What do you think about strategics today? Because the thinking, at least when you and I were coming up as entrepreneurs over the last 20 years, do not take strategic money. This is a huge mistake. But now we see Samsung starts $1 billion fund, and it's not just like Intel Capital. All the strategics are getting much more involved and want to invest. Is that still hold true today? Would you advise a startup doing their A or B round to not take Samsung's money? Or to not take a big company's money?
I think there's a few issues. Like, well, one is if, you know, it's always a high class problem to be able to choose which money. You know, a lot of people you need money, and if that's the only money you can get, then take what you can get.
Sure.
Number 2, I think generally like it's better at a later stage is a perception. So like C round, you very often, you know, if you're selling equipment to, you know, wireless carriers. You see very frequently, you see in the Series C to have AT&T and Verizon and a bunch of other people come in.
Right.
Often they sort of want it as part of a big BD deal or something. I think the other thing is the key things are the terms. Like, you don't give them a right of first refusal on acquisition. That basically kills you. I mean, that will kill you, or a right of notification. So, like, which means basically have good advice when you construct that deal. Have a good lawyer and a good investor or someone who's done it before. So you got to be careful, but it can be helpful, and sometimes it's required, like, to get these big deals done, especially at later stages.
Yeah. So keeping them to a minority of information, a minority of
it also depends.
Less options.
Depends if they're competitive or like. So, for example, we do a bunch of security investing, and if like a Citibank wants to invest, great, because they're just a customer, they're not going to compete.
Right,
they're
but
not
if McAfee or somebody who's in the security space or whatever, you're like, maybe they're here to go fishing.
Exactly.
For information. What's it like for a guy like you? How do you wind up getting a phone call from Marc or Ben saying, hey, maybe, what do they say on the phone when they call you? Do they call you as a headhunter calls you? How does that go down? What was the moment?
Well, I kind of knew them through the angel investing world. And so I bumped into them. And
so, take me to that exact moment. At what moment did this start to happen? Because I'm always interested in that. The audience is too. Were you at like a Davos or something, and he says, "Hey, maybe you should."
These are long. I mean, to join is like this is a big deal. To join as a part, like everyone. So it was like a 6-month kind of, whatever, 3-month or something. I don't know what process or something.
A long process.
And I spent a lot of time in person, and I kind of thought of myself as like because I'd blogged a lot of stuff that was sort of like perceived to be anti-VC. It wasn't anti-VC, but it was more
just
like
honest.
Yeah, I think it was just honest. I think you would agree with me. Like,
you're kind of a blunt entrepreneur's entrepreneur.
Frankly, I was a little surprised to have the quote establishment. I sort of thought of myself as more iconoclastic or something, but
you were kind of like the entrepreneur's angel investor. It was kind of your brand. It's not dissimilar.
And it was funny because when and then I was like, God, are they going to go? Have they read all the, like when they first started talking to me, I'm like, have they really read everything I've written? Because I've written some stuff that like to make sure they realize I'm sort of this,
independent free thinker, pro
entrepreneur. They'd read everything and they liked it. So they were like, "That's actually why we like you. It's because you do that stuff." Which I thought was kind of like, okay, maybe this is a good fit.
Yeah. Something has changed, hasn't it? Like it used to be that guys like us and gals, people like us, didn't get the VC shot as much. It was that was like the MBA, who you knew at Harvard or Stanford, and now it seems like everybody wants a Dixon or an Arrington or a journalist even.
I think it's this thing we were talking about earlier, which is the shift. It's like you're not like the model is no longer like I think venture used to be modeled after hedge funds. It was like who's the best stock picker, right?
Right.
Now it's modeled after like other service, like a talent agency or something where you're like, who's the person that entrepreneurs want to work with, right? That's the shift, I think. So it's like the way they think of it is we don't, if Dixon can pick companies, that's great. But we kind of know that everyone, if you're kind of one of the plugged in VCs, you kind of know who's good. And it's not.
Yeah, it becomes pretty apparent that Instagram or Pinterest or whoever's hitting a certain curve.
It becomes more about do the entrepreneurs want to work with this person?
And you're an affable, liked, out there person who has built tons of credibility through your blog. If you didn't have your blog, you think you'd have that opportunity? If you weren't so out there writing?
I think blogging is the most underrated. I know it's people talk about it, but I'm actually surprised more people in tech, and especially like investors and other people, don't do more of it. I think it is. It's like if you're starting off in your career and want to do tech, it is by far the fastest and most effective way to build a sort of personal reputation, I think.
I agree.
And I'm surprised, like you do it, I do it, Fred Wilson, Mark Suster, there's like 10?
Yeah.
That's it, really, right?
Arrington.
And by the way, it tends to be people that aren't in Northern California.
Well, because we have to.
Exactly.
It's like
we were forced to.
Yeah, and then hey, pay attention to us. Fred Wilson's like, hey, Brad Fell, hey, there's stuff going on in Boulder.
No, it's true. It's true. I think, I think blogging was huge for me, and I think it's just huge in general. I'm surprised. There was sort of this period like 4 years ago when it seemed like everyone would do it, and then it kind of fizzled out, and I'm sort of surprised.
It's kind of hard, and you also, I think, have to have an opinion, right? I think so many people are afraid to write about a subject that's in any way controversial or this whole idea of I might bump into somebody and somebody might get offended by what I wrote. Like I was going to write a whole thing about Scout, which is actually an Andreessen Horowitz investment, where they had this terrible stuff happen with kids meeting, underage kids meeting predators on it. And I didn't wind up writing it because I was like, I feel bad for the entrepreneur because I know they didn't go into this to have that happen. And I just sort of like censored myself. But I mean, that is part of it. Like, what do you write? What do you don't write? You've probably canned a couple of pieces in your career.
I have I have very few. One of the rules is I don't ever say negative things about any early stage startups, because having been there and knowing what it's like, having some dude like say, I just don't do that. Like I just think it's uncool. I
agree. I think like once I did it a couple times early when I wasn't successful. I like write about something. I think it's a bad idea or that won't work, and I stopped doing it for that exact reason.
You just know, like it's so hard, and like
it's hard already.
Like when we had negative stuff about us, like it's already so hard, and then you have your employees read, you have to explain it to them, and it's just like the whole thing, and it's just like, why is this person doing this? You know? Like what It's not like, I mean, there's so much like nefarious activity in this world, including, let's say Wall Street, for example. Like, like I just don't understand these people like, oh, the tech world needs more, critical stuff. It's like, not really. We're like one of the few areas of the economy where we're actually trying to make things better and like work hard and
innovate, dream.
Yeah, I don't really see why we need. Yeah. I think there's plenty of other things that need criticism in this world. No, it's
funny. Like I just was having dinner in Boston. It's very nice. Like Dharmesh from HubSpot sets up this dinner for me, and they're introducing everybody. And they introduce somebody. He's like, "Yeah, I'm from Buzz Agents." And I was like, Buzz Agents, I know that. He's like, yeah, you wrote this incredibly horrible piece about how our company should die because we were doing deceptive marketing. Yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that. You were the guys who were doing deceptive marketing. And the FTC went after you. And he's like, how'd that work out? He's like, well, you were right, but it was really brutal. It ruined my life for a year. I was like, I'm sorry. I was a different person back then. So but have you ever spiked? What stories have you spiked? You must have said like, I'm not going to publish this, or canned it, or shown it to another person and said, hey, should I publish this or not?
That's a good question. I did one a few that were criticizing VCs for particular activities, like one that was about this firm that backed out of a signed term sheet.
Oh, I know about this. Yeah. I'm not going to, don't worry, Chris, I'm not going to go there.
I've suffered much for this, so I don't want to.
But that is if you putting this this is on the list of things that a VC, that's pretty much the worst thing a VC could ever do.
Well, so the thing is, the way, it's bad.
I can't think of anything worse.
So the way it works, right, is that, so do you know like the TA Summit, they call it the TA, whatever. It's like the private equity guys used to do this where they would backload their diligence. Mm-hmm. So what you do is a competitive deal. This is for later stage stuff. Competitive deal. You come in with a really high price. You lock in the deal. The other guys go away. And then you have a signed term sheet, right? And then you start saying, oh wait, that customer is not a really good customer. I'm going to back out unless you lower the price. So this was like an established model in the private equity world. And then what happened in the private equity world is people started adding like breakup fees and things like this to protect because the problem is that once you sign the term sheet, the investor has all the leverage. And if the investor backs out, everyone thinks they must have discovered some kind of malfeasance or something, right? Oh. And so the entrepreneur's kind of screwed. So in the venture world, the way we've enforced this is just through reputation, right? So it's if you back out on a signed term sheet you're allowed to, if you discover they materially misrepresented something, of course, it should be confirmatory diligence, not dispository, whatever you call it, like not.
You're not auditing to look for problems to.
No, you're making sure they're not a criminal, that they didn't lie about they didn't. Yes, that's the kind of stuff you do.
If you lied about your graduate degree, you can back out.
Yeah, sure, yeah, that or like you've misrepresented revenues or users or that stuff. But if you just have a few phone calls with customers and they sound lukewarm, that's not grounds, right?
Right.
And so, that's a very important.
So you canned that piece because you just thought, oh, it's going to be too expensive?
No, I didn't. I didn't can it. I should. But,
that was the one you did do.
I did do.
But did you ever say the name of the firm? You didn't say the name of the firm.
No, I don't want to go into that.
Firm, but yeah.
Well,
the only other worst thing I can think of a venture firm could do would be to stop a sale.
Oh, yeah.
And that happens pretty frequently. I mean, I have a list of entrepreneurs who.
Well, that's always the thing. You see Hacker News, and they're always like, the company sells, and like the VCs made them sell, and it's like actually it's never the case. It's almost always the opposite case, which is the VCs want them to go for it. Like if there's ever tension, it's the opposite, right? Like it's not.
Why is that?
Because the VCs have a portfolio, and they'd rather have a few more lottery tickets, whereas the entrepreneur, it's their whole life, and so. let's say you raise $5 million and you get a $50 million offer, and the entrepreneur's like, look, I'll make whatever millions of dollars. I'll be able to start another company.
Yeah.
And the VC's like, wait, you're going, we invested to do billions of dollars. So that's usually where the tension comes.
Right.
So you're
Not
right.
the other way around. Yeah.
I don't know if have I ever seen a VC actually. I've heard stories of it. I've never personally witnessed it.
Yeah, I've seen a couple where they're like, we want to go longer, and they had control of the company. And
You've seen where they actually.
Yeah, they stopped it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was a founder who had given the CEO slot to somebody else, and so he was on the board.
I see.
And he had a.
Yeah, because that's usually the thing is if the VC does try to block it, then you lose the CEO founder. But if they've already replaced the CEO founder,
Yeah,
I
you've
guess
lost a little bit of leverage. Hey, let's talk about M&A. Amazon, Google, Apple with $140 billion, the largest hedge fund in the world. It's insane. Marissa now at Yahoo, starting to buy a bunch of small companies. Seems like acqui-hire style. What's the M&A outlook going to look like, 2013 forward with all this huge cash and these companies operating at such a high level?
I think so. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think what's happening. So mobile is obviously big. I would say in the last 6 weeks that I've done my job talking to entrepreneurs, I would say it's bigger than I even would have thought from reading the press. Like, it's almost like if you're, if I'm thinking about investing and it's not sort of long mobile, something's wrong, right? I mean, It's so important. And what's happening, I think, with the big incumbents, so that like Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, and probably Samsung, is they seem to be moving to a model where they want to control kind of the whole vertical stack, meaning the retail experience, the handset manufacturing and design, the OS, the apps. Apps including like everyone's doing maps and email and cloud services, and
This is a direct result of Apple and Steve Jobs.
that's right. Yeah, no, I think Apple proved that the vertical model was vastly superior, and now Google, of course, bought Motorola, and Amazon's making their own tablets, and everyone's going to move into all of these different. It looks like everyone's moving into doing all these different things, either through very strong alliances or through building it themselves.
I mean, we did hear Google is going to have stores, and Google launched this Pixel incredible laptop with the best resolution of any laptop.
Yeah. No, that's right. And then if you look at these markets, historically, probably two companies survive. So you've got five companies with hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap and cash.
Yeah.
All of them like directly colliding, and two will survive.
Wow.
Like I think it's gonna be like an epic battle. And usually startups benefit from that, from the M&A point of view, right? Like,
why is that?
Because if everyone wants to have the whole stack, and if you have a piece of the stack, and these guys say, how are we going to get that? And also the competency. So like Apple's amazing company, but they've always been weak at web services and data services.
Yeah.
And so, at some point, presumably they're going to figure out they have to acquire for that.
Yeah.
And if you're a web services, if you're a, I don't know what you name the company, mapping or storage or whatever, or you're just really good at that stuff, you're probably pretty interesting to them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
then each of these companies tends to have their kind of weaknesses.
Right.
Although Google is executing so incredibly well.
Yeah, let's go through each of them and let's talk about each one. Google. What are your thoughts on?
I just think the execution in the last, since Larry came back, or I don't know when it was, is just unbelievable. Like they are hitting
phenomenal.
it. Yeah, I mean, their core business on advertising, just more. They're effectively, they're completely dominant on that.
Yeah.
The search, all that stuff. I think people report 75% share. It's really 90-something%. Everyone who's has a website will tell you that.
Yeah.
I mean, they just
when you look at the traffic refers, it's pretty clear that the. Yeah.
And then the amazing thing is they're doing all this sort of core business stuff so well, but then they're also doing all this crazy, interesting, futuristic stuff.
Sure.
The cars, the glasses, and then mobile. I mean, you remember when they bought Android in 2004? And everyone was head scratching. I mean, look how visionary these guys are. It's just they're and they're doing not only the technology, but now they seem to be getting designed well. Like the Maps app and all these other things are just super well done. I just think they're.
Yeah, when you go into Apple's ecosystem on their home turf, and you absolutely slaughter them app by app. I mean, Gmail.
And think about Microsoft isn't even in this game on mobile. For Microsoft to not be in the game, for a search company to be crushing the biggest OS company is pretty remarkable, right?
That's amazing. I mean, and Does Microsoft have any chance? I mean, have you played with Windows 8? What are your thoughts?
I've used it a little. I think it's nice. It's the problem with these markets is that it's driven by the developers, right? I mean, so whoever has the developers wins. I mean, a consumer walks into a store and they say, what do you care about on your phone? You care about how it looks and this and that, which is all they're all looking pretty good now, and the hardware is pretty it's pretty standardized these days.
The new BlackBerry looks exactly like the iPhone. You can't tell them apart.
Yeah. No, and so that everyone will get, and like Microsoft will do that fine. And then people care about what? You care about, does it have Google Maps and this? And then does it have all these other games and the long tail stuff, right? And that's the only people that have that, and you probably have a shot at it, are Android and iOS right now. So,
The uphill battle.
Microsoft's trying to pay their way into it, like they're paying developers and things, but it's tough. I mean,
the market seems to move faster now than it ever has. What impact does that have on startups, do you think?
I think it's both, it's mixed, because on the one hand you see these amazing, the Pinterest and Snapchat or whatever, these kinds of things.
Uber.
They just come out of nowhere
Airbnb.
And they go. I mean, the pace of scaling is unprecedented. On the other hand, there is this, especially on like the mobile apps world, this concern about sort of a hit-driven kind of, it almost starts looking more like Hollywood, right?
Right.
Like when you see like, this. I don't want to name startup names, but you can like go through a whole bunch that raised venture money at, and we had this graph going up, and then suddenly the graph went down, and because they were faddish or whatever. And
I mean, people might think Foursquare would be one of those or something where it just had this huge boom and then it went sideways, and now it's almost like that, what do they call it? The trial of sadness or sorrow. Like you have this huge boom. It seems very pronounced in mobile where like everybody rushes in and checks out the new club, and then maybe it doesn't have sustainability.
Yeah, I think it's part of the most extreme examples are games, and those are just naturally kind of fat. If you play them and you get sick of it, and then, but it does seem to be beyond games, and that I think is.
So what would that mean for what does it mean for an entrepreneur? You gotta just, if it doesn't hit, quit and start again.
Well, one goes to your financing strategy.
Yeah.
That model can be phenomenal if you're a solo developer making a game and it's a minor hit. You can do extremely well. It just it means maybe it's not right for venture markets, right? Like for VC markets. I think that's part of it.
Yes, Squarespace. What a wonderful, wonderful product. We've been using it here forever. It's great. It's stable, and I've recommended to literally dozens of people, not on the program, like one-on-one. How do I get an industrial strength website? What do I do? I need to get a website up and running today. It's got to look gorgeous. I have a small budget. I can't afford to. And these people I say, listen, do not go to Craigslist. Do not go to like one of these like freelance sites, because you're going to wind up being hostage to somebody charging you $75 an hour to break your website. You're never going to know where the passwords are. It's going to be broken. It's going to be outdated before you even get it up and running. So listen to Jason. Get Squarespace. They charge very reasonable fees, $24 a month when you sign up for a year, and you get gorgeous, amazing templates and the latest state-of-the-art features. So when something new comes out, whether it's Pinterest or StumbleUpon or Facebook or Twitter or the iPad mini comes out, whatever it is, they're thinking about you as their customer, and they make that innovation, and it goes out to their thousands and tens of thousands of customers instantly. There's safety in numbers. How do I say it more clearly? Squarespace is awesome software as a service, and they have a new feature. You can instantly create an online store, sell digital and physical goods, accept payments immediately. I mean, this is a very revolutionary thing. And hey, it starts at only $24 a month. Beautiful stuff. Like, hey, look at this person here. This is a famous designer, and here's all their prints. And you can go in here and say, oh, I love this Wonder Woman one. I'm going to take that for $25 and just buy it. And you could set that up in moments now with Squarespace and their beautiful online stores. Or maybe you look at this beautiful hide stitch, gorgeous iPad mini cover, huh? Look at that. Maybe I need to shop, and I click on that beautiful shop button, and hey, now I can pick my envelope clutch, travel pocket, large pouch, mini reader sleeve, 125 beans. That is that will go nice in my Merce. It's a very complimentary satchel type thing. I'm going to get that for 125 beans. And beautiful. Very good hide X stitch. And then here, one more. Oh, the Tavern Vinegar Co. You know, vinegar is getting that's a very big foodie thing. Lemon beer vinegar. Sounds good. $18. Boom. Tavern Vinegar Co. I just go buy that instantly. And oh, it's sold out. Probably because they're using Squarespace. Go to squarespace.com/twist and try it out free. No credit card is required. Squarespace.com/twist and use the offer code TWiST3 after you decide to keep going after the trial runs out. Everything you need to create an exceptional website is Squarespace. I say beautiful website, you say Squarespace. I say beautiful website with commerce, you think Squarespace. You're at a party, you're at a cocktail party, and somebody says, I need a website, you say Squarespace. You're at a dinner, and somebody says, I need a commerce site set up quickly, you say Squarespace. That's it. I'm hypnotizing you right now as you listen to me. Beautiful website, Squarespace. E-commerce, Squarespace. Beautiful website with e-commerce, Squarespace. That's it. Thank you at Squarespace for sponsoring the program. Thank you for making great products. We use them here. We love them here. We're going to start selling our launch merch on the show, on the site. So thank you so much, and let's get back to the program. Thank you, Squarespace. Okay, so let's talk about talked a little bit about Google, talked about the hit-driven business for apps, and let's talk about Apple.
Okay.
What do you think? $140 billion, obviously best products in the market, but it feels like some of the hardware and Android has reached parity. Do you think Android's on par now with Apple's iOS offering?
I don't. I'm an iOS user.
Right.
Personally, I have an Android device to try it out.
Yeah.
I don't find it as intuitive.
Yeah.
But I hear more and more sort of chatter from smart friends that like the hardware is as good or possibly better, and the OS is getting better, and
feels like 80% of the way there.
Yeah, I mean it's these mark, if you believe the kind of Clay Christensen theory on these things, like what happens is they start off vertically integrated, and then over time as competitors come in and the hardware and software gets better, then the sort of the less vertically integrated guys are able to compete just as well. And then over time, those people eventually win, like the stratified, non-vertically integrated. That's the theory, and that's what happened. If you look at the history of the desktops, that's sort of what happened.
The Microsoft.
Yeah, and
but will that hold true this time, though? I mean, not just because it happened previously.
That's the $64 million question, or $1 trillion question, or whatever, billions.
It's a $640 billion valuation question.
No, I mean that's probably that is literally the most important question for probably the tech economy in the next 5-10 years.
Right.
It's like, what will the structure of the industry in mobile be?
Right. Is it going to be Apple versus Android, or other people going to play?
Yeah. How many people in the market? Like, how is it? Like, how is it structured? Like, how is the stack? Is it one company owning the stack, or multiple ones? Where do the profits flow? Do they flow like to the OS and the apps the way they did with the desktop?
Yeah.
Or is it Google making money on advertising and subsidizing the OS? Like,
or Amazon making money on the content, subsidizing the hardware. What do you think of? Before we leave out the Apple subject, can Apple succeed in this OS space if they don't build world-class apps themselves? Because it feels like their sort of cluster of great apps have now been just absolutely trounced by Google's, right? The Maps app, the Gmail app is so much better than Mail, right down the line.
Yeah.
It feels like Apple doesn't know how to make great apps. Do they need to be a great app company to buy them?
It's true that they're they're an amazing company. I think the most innovative company in technology in the last 30 years, clearly. And but they've had this Achilles heel of web services and data services. I would put Maps in the data services, or search, or other things, and then iCloud and all this stuff is
a disaster.
I know, it's not good.
I've had twice my phone.
And frankly, like iTunes and all of it, it's like, I mean, they did a good job on the media deals, but no one likes the software. And like I have an Apple TV, and it always. The downloads don't, it's not reliable like in the way that like a Dropbox is or something.
Yeah.
And so that's always been their Achilles heel. So can they get that together? And then also, will they pull another, rabbit out of the hat with like, I don't know what, TV or something?
Watch TV,
because at some point, the iPhone and the iPad will sort of run their course, but the competition will get good enough.
And if you were running it, or you were on the board or something, would your advice be like, just go buy like the top 10 apps out there, buy Evernote, buy Twitter? I mean, it seems like somebody's got to buy Evernote and Twitter at some point. I mean, they got the $140 billion. Yeah. If it's me, maybe just go buy those things.
It was, I thought a super interesting moment was when Apple Maps came out, and then Google had a choice. Do they release Maps for their iOS, or do they not?
Right.
And they could have said, no, you know what, if you want, I personally might have switched to an Android to get the Maps. Apple Maps did not work. And I depend, it's a key feature. That could have been a, they decided to go for that. Now that's interesting, because they could always change that in 3 years. And if Apple doesn't have if someone doesn't have decent Maps, that's a big issue. so on the other hand, maybe what they're trying to do is just, people won't even care about iOS anymore because we'll have so many of the good apps. When they walk into the store, all they'll say is, does it have Google Maps, Gmail, Google Calendar? And then they're like, okay, now get the one that has the coolest form factor or something. Maybe that's Google's strategy. It seems to be their strategy, just to sort of like have people care about the apps and not the OS. I think at some point there's going to be a battle over those apps and people will buy those companies. And I think it's also like, every big company has their own M&A philosophy. So there's like the people like the Ciscos and Oracles of the world who sort of view themselves as distributors, not as, for the most part, R&D labs anymore. And so they're very happy. You buy some
Linksys or whatever.
Yeah, or like some enterprise, success factors. They get to hundreds of millions in revenue. We buy them, we plug them into our stack. We can now upsell them 5x. They immediately raise the price 5x, and they can sell it because they're distributors and they're happy buying. Like securities like that. It's like Symantec McAfee. They buy companies every day for big premiums because they can plug them in the channel. Whereas companies like Apple have said no. They rarely do acquisitions, right?
No, they never.
Or if they do, it's like talent. It's small. And the question is now that they're in a different strategic point and they don't have Steve Jobs, will they be forced to sort of change their attitude towards that? Microsoft never for a long time they never made acquisitions, and then they now obviously Skype,
Yammer.
Avenue A, Yammer, like they've changed.
And
that.
those seem to have worked out really well. Skype seems to be flourishing.
Skype
Yammer
is doing
seems to
very
be
well.
flourishing. I mean, it seems to be a pretty good strategy.
Yeah, and so at some point will Apple make that shift as well? It'll be a really interesting question.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think they need to at some point.
I think especially around the web services and
It's such a disaster.
data.
I mean, have you had your phone have to be restored and everything from the iCloud? It's just kludgy.
I don't even use iCloud. I just find it such a mess.
I paid $100 for it. It's just it's never ending syncing. It doesn't tell you even a simple thing like telling you the percentage that it's complete. It doesn't even do stupid, silly
love
stuff
Apple.
like that.
All I own are Apple devices, and
Right.
I've always loved them, but that stuff is just terrible. I agree.
All right, let's move on to Amazon. What an amazing company this has been, right?
Yeah.
One company takes over retail and concurrently cloud computing.
And importantly, they still have their founder, CEO, visionary, right?
Yeah.
Running it.
Bezos is he underappreciated, maybe?
I think people are starting to see him as the main, kind of. I guess Larry Page back at Google is also, you've had that too. So, that's important. If you look at the history of these really innovative, look at Sony with Morita or whatever, it was always when you had the founder CEO was their golden age, right?
Yeah.
And so Amazon has that. They have a really, really strong, the commerce position is just, is very, very strong. And might be really interesting leverage into they're able to. It's really fascinating because they're able to use that to subsidize the Kindles and everything else. In the same way that Google's able to use the advertising, right? So it's one of the interesting things too with this strategic battle is you've got not only people with different competencies, but actually totally different business models.
Yeah.
And which one will end up dominating there? So
which one would you bet on? You bet on the advertising model, the margin in the product like Apple's, or we might be able to upsell you on some commerce with the Kindle.
I tend to think. I think they're both great companies, and Amazon, I tend to think will eat more out of offline commerce than it will Google. You know what I mean? That's where I would, if you want to go long Amazon, I'd go short Best Buy. I wouldn't probably short Google. I think they're both really powerful and will do well. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It's they're not.
E-commerce is still only 8% of commerce. It's shockingly low. That number is going to go to 30 or 40.
It's got to.
Yeah, of course it is. The only thing you're going to still do physically is you're going to do the showrooming, they call it, right? Which is you go to check out the new Apple thing, high touch stuff.
And you probably don't even buy it. You're probably just I saw it.
Right.
I'll order it online later.
No, you won't keep inventory there. Yeah, you'll get it online. And then the other thing maybe you'll do is you need whatever. I want to get some crackers in the next 5 minutes. Maybe I'll walk down to there'll be a corner deli or something. Right. But otherwise, I can't imagine why you'd have retail stores. I don't know.
Feels like it's kind of. Are you at Amazon Prime? And you
yeah,
deliver it at your house?
It's I need a toothpick or whatever. It's to Amazon Prime and it's there. It's awesome.
And 48 hours later, it's there. And so, where are you going to invest? I mean, it seemed like the New York contingent was kind of sellout. He's the West Coast, and you got a little bit of bunk about that, but. You still have your place there. You're going to invest there. I would assume that one of the reasons they wanted you is because New York's booming, right?
Yeah. No, that's for sure. And the only reason that, the Andreessen Horowitz has a philosophy of one office. Mm-hmm. So there's not going to be an Andreessen Horowitz China or something, right? Yeah. And that's not because we don't want to invest in other places. It's because of just old fashioned team camaraderie, that kind of thing. It's important to it's sort of a just like any sort of well-run company, you have people together and
Yep.
they get along and things like that. It's not a reflection of where we want to invest, right? So I would love it if, you know, half my investments or maybe more were in places like New York. And I think separately that there's a strong argument that a lot more tech innovation will happen in places like New York and LA, in that we're now kind of like, if you read like historians of technological revolutions, the last 5, like going back to like, you know, steam and automobile, the first half was what they usually call the installation phase, where you're sort of first building up the internet and like the basic things. Like now we have a search engine, now we have optical switching. Now if you look at the 90s, the best returns were companies that invested in like optical switching and all this kind of stuff. It actually wasn't the apps layer. And then we sort of build up the apps. Now we have a social graph. Now we have search. And then the next phase of these revolutions are always what they call the deployment phase, which is when you're then taking it and saying, now let's use this internet to revolutionize healthcare and media and LA and, you know, advertising and
magazines,
finance and
publishing,
like,
whatever.
Exactly. And those things so like if you look at the automobile revolution, the first half was all located in Detroit, right? Which is the Silicon Valley of its time, new cars, new engines. Yeah. And the second half was like highway system, McDonald's, Best Buy, you know, big box retail, like all these things that were sort of applications, quote, of cars.
Right.
Like they were all over. And that's
drive-ins.
Yeah, drive-ins, exactly. Those are the apps of the car.
What are the things called where you went and you got, you drove your car up and got served food on the side of your car?
Oh yeah, like from like Happy Days or whatever.
Yeah, like they actually come up and put it on your windshield or something. Some
I
food.
don't know what those are called, but like those were the apps of that era, and those apps tended to be dispersed outside of Detroit, right? And so by the same token, I think that will happen in the next 10, 20 years in our industry.
How many investments and of what size are you going to do? Have you had that discussion, and was that part of it? Like, you're going to be the angel guy, or
no?
Or you guys are. It seems like, what didn't they say? Andreessen was going to be stage indifferent.
Yeah, we're stage indifferent. And I'm stage indifferent. Like my job description is to be stage indifferent. So everything from seed to, you know, I wasn't there, but we did the Skype buyout. Right,
I remember that.
Yeah, which
is double the money in like a year.
It's like that, which feels more like a private equity type deal. It's more of like, you know, the classic kind of Silver Lake type deal as opposed to a venture. So it's really like truly kind of stage agnostic, and that's my job as well.
And Horowitz is over there now, I understand. Like is he part of the firm? What's the story there? You don't even know.
I actually don't know his official thing, but he's there all the time.
That's what I hear. He's there all the time.
But you know, but again.
No, everybody knows. It's been written.
No. I know. I don't know what his official thing. I think he's an advisor.
Hanging out, yeah.
Yeah, he hangs out there all the time.
What is he like? I mean, it's like now you got this Hollywood guy hanging out.
I don't know. I mean, I've only been doing the job for 6 weeks. He's like super interesting, nice guy, and we talk about. He's really engaged in tech. I think he's having a lot of fun. He seems to be like excited, and you know, he sits in like our partner meetings and says smart stuff, and so.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
and how big are the funds now? I mean, I kind of lost track because it felt like the firm is 3 years old now, or something.
Yeah. So the current one is $1.5 billion. Is the third fund.
This is $1.5 billion on anything. So you could put $100 million into a later stage thing, or
yeah, we did 100 into GitHub, for example.
But you would put 100,000 into something small, or even go that low? Yeah. Have you guys? Or?
Yeah, there's a whole active seed program. So.
Oh right, you guys have a Sequoia Scouts style seed.
It's not Scouts. It's just that we.
The partners. Do
like we have a meeting with someone interesting, and then you know.
Yeah, interesting. And what's Marc Andreessen like? I mean, now that you've been in
awesome.
there,
he's awesome. I don't know. He's kind of as advertised. Like he's like incredibly smart. Like. Like sort of supernaturally smart. I don't know.
Yeah. And, he does seem. There's a word for it too. What do they call that? Predator. God. It's like superhuman, predator human or something. Anyway, I can't.
He's very, very smart. They're all really smart. And he's like a super nice guy. Like he wants to do like I don't know. You spend time with. I mean, It's like
he was going to be the investor in Weblogs Inc. before we sold.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's like the whole group, I mean, is like really just sort of charged up with like, you know, how can we change the world and do cool stuff, and sort of like it's the funny thing at the firm is like every time someone has an idea, it's always like, well, how can we do that 20 times larger and more, you know, like cooler, and like, you know, like it's sort of that's the attitude is like go
big.
Yes, very, very much. Like in fact, like if like the worst thing an entrepreneur can say is like, when here's the exit strategy or something. It's just like,
what?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. What's the way this takes over the world?
Yeah, which is frankly a different way of thinking than I like as an angel investor, right? I didn't really thought that way as much. It was much more like, you've done angel investing. If you invest at a $5 million valuation and they sell for $100 million, you're like, awesome, right?
Right.
So that's like, for me at least personally, like a sort of bigger adjustment, I guess, is just thinking about things that way. Like if it's going to be a likely $100 million exit, that's not a good fit for us. I mean,
the goalposts have moved.
Yeah.
In a big way.
It's
what's the most successful angel investment to date for you? Like it's on a pure return base, and then just in terms of enjoyment. I know it's hard to pick favorites, but.
Well, I mean, there's like the consumer, like some of my consumer ones are like Kickstarter,
oh my
Foursquare,
God, that's incredible.
Like,
both of those are great, yeah.
Some of them though, like I'm an investor in Pinterest, but that was later stage, so I don't know. Like it all depends on like, is it obviously it's a great company? I did it later stage. I have a bunch of B2B stuff that it doesn't get as much attention, but they're great companies that I really like.
Hey, what do you think is going to happen with Kickstarter? I mean, I was at a poker game recently, and I was talking to there was two directors at the table. Happened to be two directors at the poker table in Hollywood, and I was trying to explain to these two gentlemen who were pretty high profile, like you could actually fund a film on here for $30 million.
There's three Oscar-nominated films this year that were made on Kickstarter. I mean, I don't know which they are. I think they're like
Beast of the Southern Wild. I think is one of them. But yeah, documentaries. It's a place for documentaries.
Yeah. So there's three of them, and I think like you can imagine. So it's like think about like with some of these tech companies. Like remember like Twitter like 2 or 3 years ago, and then like Facebook 5 years ago. There was like a point at which it was like kind of where Kickstarter is now, where like all the techies know it, and we talk about it, but like Hollywood hasn't heard of it yet, right? Like remember like, and each of these things was at that point at one point, and then some of them didn't cross over, and some of them suddenly it did.
Yeah,
and it usually happens in like a month.
Right,
like something happens.
It's like Britney Spears and Paris Hilton start using it.
That's right. Or I think with Kickstarter, it's like Quentin Tarantino, like some cultish.
That's what I told him. What if Quentin Tarantino
or
put
like,
a film up there?
Or God, think if you did, I mean, not that they need the money, but like if you did the Star Wars on there, you'd get the money in like an hour, right? Like, the next.
Absolutely. If you put the Boba Fett movie on, not that Disney needs the money, but if you put the Boba Fett movie on there, forget it.
I agree. I think it's, I think that could happen. I don't see why. Not only do you get the money, you get the community, you get the engaged fans, you get the,
When you get 100% ownership of the IP.
Yeah. I think what's happening, so like, I think Fred Wilson talks about this a lot, is how the internet unbundles industries. And so I think of Kickstarter as potentially the thing that unbundles the financing layer of the media industry.
Wow.
So you think about what do traditional media companies do, right? Mm-hmm. You do financing, I guess you know this better than I do, but like production, marketing, distribution.
Yeah, it's marketing, distribution.
Yeah, and so like distribution,
finance,
like at least in like music, distribution sort of gone now, or maybe it's through Spotify, I don't know what. And then like there's the finance part, which could be like Kickstarter or these other kinds of crowdfunding things. And so, you sort of imagine each layer getting picked off and
yeah, distribution's changed. This film Arbitrage that came out to $12 million on VOD alone,
really?
Or $20 million or something.
On Apple TV. I remember,
You watched it on Apple TV?
Yeah.
My friend Nick Jarecki made that. He made this film, and it's like he made it for $20 million. It made $20 million on VOD. He's in the black, like out of the gate. Yeah. So in the media space, you see House of Cards coming out now on Netflix. Mm-hmm. Amazon is optioning scripts. I don't know if you've read this. They have this Amazon Studios thing.
It's interesting.
Why isn't Apple taking this $140 billion and saying, let's put $10 billion to work funding TV shows?
What you say is super interesting, because like think about Spotify. Like if you talk to like the tech world, half the tech world is like they're awesome, and the other half is like they're screwed because their content licensing and all their profits are going to go to the content, right?
Right.
And like and people talk about that with Netflix too, right? But I think if you take a broader view historically, there's always been a battle between content and distribution. Right, and at various times they have different shifting balances of power or something. Yeah. And so the argument with Spotify, Netflix is once you get big enough, then you can go into content.
I.e. iTunes.
Yeah, iTunes or what Netflix is doing now is fascinating, and Spotify, I assume, will do that at some point too.
You think they'll actually?
Well, I don't know. I think they have.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I think so, right? I mean, maybe it's different with music because of the lifespan of music.
I think Sean Parker would do that though. He was trying to buy one of the music.
I think at some
labels.
point you have to get leverage against the content guys, right?
Yeah.
Now I think the reason Apple hasn't, I think, is because they don't see that as a profit center. They see that as just like they run iTunes for them is a nonprofit that they can just use to make the devices better. So they don't really care. They're not making much money on that.
But imagine if they owned a studio and they just went and did like, I don't know, the shows that the networks canceled, like Arrested Development, that people just wanted a couple more seasons. Mm-hmm. They just started funding that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was only available on your iPad, or available for the first year on iPad, and then everywhere else. It would be huge.
I think you might see the future might be in video games right now. So Kickstarter did $100 million funding of independent video games last year. That was the biggest category, I think. And then it's getting distributed now through Steam. I don't know if you know, this is like the most underrated media company in the world.
Steam's incredible.
Like $1 billion revenue, like it's phenomenal, right? And by the way, Steam is the most interesting company that's probably going to move into the console space because they have this massive distribution now.
So just buy like a Ouya or make one.
Yeah, buy one or make one or whatever. Like they're the powerhouse there.
Android.
So you're seeing it happen though. Like that, you're funding it on Kickstarter, you're distributing it through Steam, you're like playing it on any device or something, and like the whole thing is getting unbundled. And I think probably video games. Yeah, I think it's the most forward-looking right now.
Yeah. I think that is the biggest. People were complaining about, it's too many games up there. It's like a game studio. That's when you know a company's doing well, is when people start complaining about like, it's too much of this. It's too many celebrities on Twitter.
Yeah.
What's your take? We'll end up on this one. Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn. We're looking at 3 social networks there. LinkedIn obviously is juggernaut for revenue. Mm-hmm. Their market cap close to exceeding Yahoo's. Could they ever catch up to Facebook in terms of revenue, you think? Or
it's like, if you think of it as like there's one is sort of the personal network and one's a professional network. Yeah. Professional certainly seems important. You know. They've done an amazing job. So
Twitter versus Facebook. I mean, all the intelligent, like powerful people are on Twitter, and everybody's on Facebook. But it seems like the conversation on Twitter is the important people.
I think they're different. I think Twitter's more of a publishing platform than is and less of a. I mean, it's sort of social. Like you'll reply me or something.
Right.
But for the most part, it's I don't know the numbers, but I would imagine that it would look very power law like, and that you have a relatively small group with a lot of followers.
Which is more important in 10 years.
I think it sort of replaced RSS, didn't it? I mean,
big time.
So like it's the new web publishing platform.
Yeah.
I think they could both. I would be bullish on both. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, what do you think the difference is then? Is it that the Twitter is for famous people to publish themselves, or Facebook's for everybody?
Yeah, and I think Facebook's essentially a photo sharing network, isn't it? I mean, Instagram, it's a photo sharing network amongst your friends, and Twitter is a text publishing platform. A link publishing platform. So at least to me, it is. That's how I use it.
Yeah.
I think they're both. I mean, I use Twitter constantly. I mean, as you do probably too, like most tech people do.
Yeah.
I also find Twitter for me is much more of a professional tool, and I use Facebook more as a personal tool.
There is that little split.
Like if there's like a thing, like when I was in New York, and like there was a hurricane, I go on Facebook to see how friends are doing, and then and Twitter was meanwhile all these people in California talking about iPhones, right? So like it's like
it is very weird when that happens, because I made a joke about something, and people were like, Peter Rojas was like, I have no power. I have like a 3-year-old. It's like, really, you're joking about it. I was like, I had no idea. Like Manhattan still doesn't have power. It was like 4 days in, and I was like, you don't have power in Manhattan?
Yeah, I was there, and it was.
What's it like to not have power after 5 days in Manhattan?
It got a little I Am Legendish at some point. It was like, it was like my place is in the East Village there, and I love the East Village. But when you're out of power for 4 days, and like
East Village doesn't smell good after.
Yeah,
in the 90s,
the only sounds you'd hear were like sirens, and it was just like a little,
this could go to hell real quick.
I actually thought at one point, like day 4, like because there's no food, there's no there's no, and then remember you lived there. There's like the whole city's optimized for like delivery and just in time food. No one keeps food stored.
Yep. Could get ugly quick.
It could have gotten ugly. Yeah, I think so.
Man, it's crazy. There's no global warming. Hey, so what do you think of AngelList?
I think it's awesome. So first of all, I like.
It's a very surreal moment. The audience has no idea why.
Okay. I think it's awesome. First of all, Naval and Nivi are great, and I think they've been it's been a super positive influence on the the early stage startup world, sort of democratizing all the good things the internet does.
Yeah. You talked before about a marketplace. Hey, there's a marketplace.
Yeah, and I don't know if they have plans to move into crowdfunding, but certainly if they did, it would be.
They're doing
interesting.
Crowdfunding on for accredited investors. Mm-hmm. So they make one LLC that does $150,000, $1,000 at a time.
Yeah. I think it's super interesting. I think it goes, there's at the beginning we were talking about the future of venture capital. I think there's all sorts of probably it's funny because we're in the business of trying to innovate and change industries, and yet our industry hasn't changed that much. It's like Dr. Heal Thyself kind of thing. It's like why haven't we done that? And I think
doctor's still smoking cigarettes.
yeah. So I think we're starting to see AngelList is a great example. Andreessen
Horowitz is a great example. 60 people there doing services for the entrepreneur, as opposed to the entrepreneurs coming to this like vaulted cathedral to, oh, please give me a check. It's like you come in and it's like you're getting your nails done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased, but I'd argue that that's true. I think that's
I'm an entrepreneur. I can tell you it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think there's, I think also like I think places like. First round. There's a bunch of other firms like First Round, U.S. Fred Wilson, like a bunch of people doing it, really interesting stuff. And then AngelList, and then the whole rise of kind of the seed fund, super angels.
Yeah.
So I think it's just good that we have all this experimentation going on.
Have you invested in a company from there that you found on AngelList that you remember, or?
I use it like the way I use Crunchbase. Like I check on. I can't recall if I actually found it through there, but I certainly like.
But you've taken introductions from there, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. See, that's what I find very interesting. I'm just like, that looks interesting. Intro. I'll do a couple intros a week, check people out.
I mean, it's harder because it depends if you're doing it like angel investing kind of at scale. You end up having to rely on lots of filters that are beyond just is it a cool idea, but more like, hey, did this get sent to me from like a person who, who's investing, who I trust, just because. So that's the challenge with that. I think when you're doing it at scale, but certainly it's really interesting.
Chris Dixon, what an amazing hour. Such a great advice for entrepreneurs and great insights on the industry. Everybody follow C. Dixon, Dixon, on Twitter. And this is great for me because basically this is it. After Inside.com, that's my last startup. And then I got recruited last year pretty heavy by 2 venture firms. That's it. I'm going the Chris Dixon route. I'm going to get recruited.
Well, let me know. I can tell you all the secrets over beer sometime.
Of how to get recruited by a VC. It's such a great life. You look like you're so relaxed now compared to running a startup.
It's a lot easier than doing startups.
So much respect for founders. Like you're sitting there grinding your teeth at night, wondering if
I had a friend who said, before I started my first company, he was an experienced entrepreneur. He said, get ready to feel sick to your stomach for the next 5 years. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then later on, I was like, oh, shit, I should have listened to that guy.
That's pretty much the most accurate description I've ever heard. 5 years of complete nausea. Or just like this, like waking up in the middle of the night. Like you had that as an entrepreneur?
Oh, yeah.
We just like wake up in the middle of the night, oh, shit, I forgot something. Oh, my God, I forgot
this. That's why we have so much respect for them.
Yeah.
Because it's a really hard thing to do.
I think I look at your getting hired by Andreessen Horowitz as this great moment in the history of like venture capital because it's like one of the good like entrepreneur angels like is now at one of the top firms. It's like a really big deal that it's not just another MBA getting that slot. Like it makes me feel like, oh wow, like if I was starting a new company, like Andreessen Horowitz would be like one of the top 3 stops. Like I'm going to go like here, here, and here, right? Like it really, you joining specifically, I think cements it for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially for the New York ones.
Thanks.
So continued success, and we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups.